Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is FPC Radio Live. It is Wednesday. We are just a few days away from Super Bowl 58 in, what looks like rainy Las Vegas right now. But, it's dome. It's covered. It'll be nice weather. It'll be nice and cool inside of Allegiant Stadium. But, yeah, John, look, hey, I'm excited for this game. At this point, I just want to see it get here because, as we've seen over the years, the endless just coverage of this game, it gets to a point where it's jumped the shark a little bit, just poor questions being asked half the time. I mean, these press conferences are just, I don't know. They're more like just time filler, it feels like, and nothing too important to the actual game. So I'm ready to see some football.
Yeah, the reason the game has grown so much and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year is because you have other media types covering it, right? So you have TMZ, or you'll have some website that never covers football but is more in pop culture. So, it expands the audience to the point that when Sunday arrives, 120, 130 million Americans are going to watch this game, be the number one rated TV program for the year, like it has been for every year since I can remember. So they've expanded the game to that point. The NBA's tried to do that with the finals. Their ratings have been good over the years. They've sunken a little bit, but the Super Bowl ratings just keep going up and up and up because the audience is so expansive, and then you have halftime, which is going to draw in even more people. So, I know the old writers probably get frustrated when they're at the press conference trying to ask football questions, but it's this popular now because the audience is so wide ranging.
No, exactly. And, it's, look, I understand it. Obviously you got an influx of pop fans this year with the, the emergence, I guess, of Taylor Swift on the NFL scene. And look, the NFL, obviously, it's that's money for them. It's gold. It's gold. So, you're reaching a broader audience because, there are people out there. There are probably a lot of people out there that this is the only football game they watch all season.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And halftime is a big part of it. And from what we've read, Taylor Swift has brought in $330 million to the NFL coffers this year. We'll figure that out. That's $10 million per team. That's an extra $5 million to the salary cap. Break it down. That's like $100,000 per player. So, if people push back, they can just look in their wallet and see that it's grown partly because of Taylor Swift. She's that big a star. So sometimes we sound like old men and don't show her so often. Well, what are you going to show in between plays sometimes?
Well, 30, to be fair, when Travis Kelce catches a touchdown, I kind of want to see Travis Kelce celebrate in the end zone and not the luxury suite. And you know what I mean? So look, I'm like, there's obviously people out there that are like, get her off my screen. And it's just like me. I'm just like, I don't need every transition shot to go be a shot of her celebrating. You know what I mean? Like I thought it was funny last week when he scored during the AFC Championship game, and they kept the camera on her so long that the graphic that he scored with his name and everything popped up, and it was still on her. I thought that was really funny. I'm like, oh wow, he scored all the way up from the luxury box. That's funny. But yeah, so it's so in that sense, I don't, that's where I'm coming from, where it's like, yeah, I get it. I understand. But certainly those first couple of weeks, it was so over the top. It was just remember when they were trying to force every song lyric into I think Tony Romo was doing that. The best thing to come out of all this, though, was that not so subtle shot Jim Nantz took at Tony Romo about Jessica Simpson. I don't remember what week it was. It was just a random conversation they were having, but it was I thought it was really funny. And Tony Romo's a good sport, so he obviously didn't laughed at it as well, just like I'm sure we all did if you caught it. But the reality of it is it's good business for the NFL. It brings in a broader fan base, and I say this stuff about hockey all the time. You know what? It may annoy you sometimes, but you need casual fans. It is what it is. If you're going to grow, look, the NFL doesn't need help growing, although this does help them. But leagues like the NHL, it's like people complain about you got these people don't even care about. I'm like, yeah, But at the same time, that's how your sport grows and it reaches a broader audience. And you kind of want to bring in a new generation of fans and stuff like that. So in that sense, I get it. But at this point, I'm just ready. I'm ready for the game. I don't need another 3-4 days of all this talk.
Yeah, and it'll wind down probably by Saturday because that's when everybody leaves Radio Row. And Saturday generally is a quiet day unless one of the players does something crazy like Eugene Robinson did back about 25 years ago, the night before the Super Bowl, when he was caught with a lady of the evening, or, Matt Robbins, I believe, went AWOL towards the end of the week leading up to the Super Bowl about 20 years ago when the Raiders were playing Tampa Bay. So, yeah, generally from about Friday on, it gets a little bit quieter, dies down, and then you just get ready for kickoff. And again, you're going to see 120, 130 million fans ready to watch it. And you bring up a great point, Ian, about the NHL. The NHL, I've always felt, has the biggest cult following. Like, people that love hockey really love hockey, and they're really into it. And I think if you listen to talk radio, the best callers into talk radio tend to be hockey fans, because they really do follow the game more than any other sport, and they really have done it for a long period of time. But yeah, to grow the sport, you've got to reach out to more fans so that the numbers go up, so that you can get maybe 10 million people watching a Stanley Cup final instead of 2 or 3 million.
Right. And look, I mean, hockey, we've talked about it before. It has the I'd say it's probably got the fewest crossover fans, because it's such a worldwide global game. Which not that, certainly baseball is a global game. But hockey, I think, is more spread out and more broad coverage. So it's like, you get so many different cultures, different, just so many differences. Whereas, look, the NFL, it's, you could probably count on two hands the amount of non-North American player in the league right now. Is that fair to say? I mean, it's
sure.
It's a pretty low.
Grown. The fan base has grown.
Sure,
Mexico,
absolutely.
Brazil, Europe, Germany, it's big. But
wasn't
how many foreign-born players are there in the NFL? Maybe a few from Canada. There were a couple from Mexico. You're right. And Sebastian Vollmer comes to mind.
Well, I was going to say, wasn't there recently
from Germany?
I was going to say, like, this there hasn't been too many German-born players. I mean, it wasn't too long ago we were talking about like one of the first or second German-born players to play in a Super Bowl. Was it Jakob Johnson? Right. So like. The NFL, again, it's I mean, it maximizes every bit of potential it gets out of North America and, of course, in the UK and other areas around the world, but certainly not, like the NHL in terms of reach globally. It doesn't mean that they get more viewers. It just means in terms of what do you want to call it? Diversity, in the sense that, like, different countries, different areas of the world, I think you get more of that with hockey, but less total viewers, because again, football is just an absolute machine in the United States and in North America specifically, obviously. So, but yeah, look, I mean, you gotta tip your hats off to the NFL, because they know how to maximize every little opportunity that they can get to make money. So, with that said, though, we're gonna give our top 10 players. That's what this episode's gonna be about. We're gonna do top 10 players in the Super Bowl. We're gonna count down from 10. Just go through it that way, give our opinion. You can rip us later if you want, tell us we're wrong. I know a lot of Chiefs fans like to call me wrong. They're the only fan base that does that, John. It makes me feel like maybe I'm doing something right.
You are their main target.
Yes. I'd like to think that I'm their, target of frustration whenever, actually it's starting to turn into that. I'm getting a lot of, random tags in posts and trying to dunk, quote unquote, dunk on me. So I in that sense, I guess I've made it in terms of being hated in a region. But hey, I got to do something. I gotta bring people back to reality. It's somehow, John. Somehow, and this is my way. So, all right. Speaking of reality, here is our top 10 list of best players in the Super Bowl, both obviously from the 49ers and the Chiefs. So I will start with my number 10, and it's a 49ers wide receiver, not named Deebo Samuel, but Brandon Ayuk. Deebo Samuel's the name. Brandon Ayuk is the game. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense, but it rhymes, so I'm gonna go with it. He's a stud, man. I mean, he just what does he not do is the question. Forget about what he does. What does he not do? Brandon
Fantastic
Ayuk.
wide receiver.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they've got maybe it's not Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, or AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, but it's maybe more versatile when you talk about Deebo Samuel.
Well, they also have a better quarterback.
And right, those teams, especially
yeah, no, Brock Purdy's better than Tua. I mean,
you put him as better than Tua. I mean, I kind of put Jalen Hurts with Philly and Tua with Miami and Brock Purdy. I kind of all put them in the same level, but yeah, you can.
Well, I'll say he's better than Tua, in fact, like pretty confidently. I probably say I'm based on 2 years of Brock Purdy and the last 2 years of Jalen Hurts. Brock Purdy's been far more consistent and kind of better. I mean, if you're basing just Jalen Hurts off last year, yeah, oh sure, you can take Jalen Hurts, no problem. But this year,
yeah, no, it's an interesting conversation. I'm not a big Tua fan, never was. I'm never a big fan of the Alabama guys, and Jalen Hurts, you can give him credit. He went to Oklahoma and finished second in Heisman voting. But number 10 for me, I was hesitant to put him on this list, but since he plays the most important position in all of sports, number 10 for me is Patrick Mahomes. No, I'm just kidding. It's Brock Purdy.
I was going to say, wait a minute.
Yeah, I'm going to flip this upside down. I'm going to go all Skip Bayless on you and say that LeBron James is confidently one of the 10 greatest players in the history of the NBA, which is a ludicrous statement when he put them at like number 7 or 8. But I've got Brock Purdy at number 10. Look, what he did in the postseason is impressive. And I'm always impressed when quarterbacks play poorly in the first half and then come back in the second half and are lights out. I mean, Brady's done it. Manning's done it. Rodgers hasn't done it enough for me. I mean, right. They have bad halves, these guys. They have bad quarters. But the ability to come back in the second half like he did against Detroit was very, very impressive. So I brought Purdy at number 10.
All right. My number 9, George Kittle. Again, you know, the whole argument about the best tight end and this, that, and the other. I mean, as much as people look, we've had the conversation before. This isn't even a Gronk versus Travis Kelce thing because, like, I can probably say that I might not even have either of those two as my greatest tight end of all time. So it's not about one or the other in that sense. But the reality of it is, John, the tight end position is by definition a hybrid of a lineman and a receiver. So you can't just pick one thing and say because of that, that's more important than the other. No, it's a hybrid position. I had someone trying to sit there and say, you can't tell me that blocking is more important than receiving. And I'm like, no, they're equal. It's part of the position, John. Like it's not my thing. If you were calling this person a wide receiver, then I said I wouldn't care about blocking. Although it's nice, I don't really care. George Kittle, if you're going to ask me who's a more complete tight end, well, I think it's obviously Kittle. Doesn't mean he's a better receiving tight end. Although, again, I mean, it's not like he isn't close. And I think he's a much more physical on-the-line blocker. Do I think either of them are better in that sense than Rob Gronkowski? No. But it doesn't mean I can't appreciate Travis Kelce's receiving ability. I kind of chuckle at the whole, you have to call him a tight end. He's the greatest tight end of all time. Well, he might be the greatest receiving tight end of all time. And even that's, questionable, depending on how far back you want to go. And by that, I mean, if you want to go any further back than 10 years, then there might be a discussion. Anyways, long story short, George Kittle, for me, number 9.
Number 9 for me is Deebo Samuel. And again, it kind of came down to Brandon Ayuk with Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is such a player in the run game as a blocker, as a runner. And he almost gives the 49ers offense their physicality, which is odd coming from a wide receiver. Similar to the way Hines Ward did it for the Pittsburgh Steelers back 10, 15 years ago, where he was kind of like the physical presence in their offense. I feel the same way about Deebo Samuel. I have him at number 9.
All right. Number 8 for me is Brock Purdy. And again, most important position on the field. And again, I can't, the results are the results. Are people going to knock him for having a bad half? Well, sure, you can do that, but I hope you keep the same energy for Patrick Mahomes, who had a poor kind of 3 quarters, But for Brock Purdy, people are like, oh, look how bad he was, or like he wasn't really that good in the first half. And not you, obviously, you're a smart guy, John. You understand that like coming through and delivering in the second half can make up for some shortcomings there early on, as long as the end result is what you want, and that's a win. So to me, I look at it, I'm like, look, they're a better team. You look statistic wise, they're better pretty much in every facet of offense than they were with a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. And I know that the common discussion is, oh, look at the talent around him. Of course, the talent around him boost those players up, just like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce boosted Mahomes up. That's not a knock. That's reality. But it also doesn't mean that outside of those players, he's just a guy. And I'm talking about Brock Purdy. Like I said, for 2 straight seasons, he's done nothing but deliver pretty consistently. And last year was incomplete because of the injury in the NFC Championship game. But look at this. He came back from a pretty bad elbow injury, and now he's back. Now he's in the Super Bowl, taking it one step further. So I gotta give him his props and say Brock Purdy, number 8.
Yeah, I mean, I had him at number 10, so I think he should get respect from people. The only difference between Purdy and Garoppolo, Purdy seems to take care of the football a little bit better than Garoppolo, although he'll put some balls in harm's way.
Purdy's got more of a killer instinct. I know there's not a number or measurement, but like he's right. He does. Yeah. He's got more of a
When you're as good looking as Jimmy, his life is pretty easy, right? Like
I saw someone tweet recently, and I was I can't believe I didn't realize it, but someone said we finally figured out who Brock Purdy looks like. And it's Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh man, yeah, exactly.
I was like, oh my god, that's hilarious. Maybe And
the thing I would respond to that is 2 guys that didn't do it all alone.
Yeah.
We can have that conversation at some point, like Rob Reiner has done. I'm anxious to listen to his 10-part podcast on the assassination of JFK. That's kind of one of my things that I like to follow as much as I can. Number 8 for me, Trent McDuffie, who's the cornerback for the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City defense is for real, right? I mean, top 5 defense this year, especially against the pass. You can run on them, but they kept teams out of the end zone. And Trent McDuffie's a player who grew from year 1 to year 2. He's outstanding. And again, we all talk about the offensive stars on Kansas City. Can't forget some of their top level defensive players, and Trent McDuffie for me is number 8.
All right, number 7 for me, Fred Warner. So I think he was, the highest graded linebacker all season per Pro Football Focus this year. A guy that I don't want to say he gets ignored, but I guess the star power of San Francisco sometimes pushes him down the line, because it's like, look, when you start talking about the defense, often you're going right to Nick Bosa in the defensive line of the 49ers. And obviously, it's not going to you're not going to get too far to get to Fred Warner, but with that and all the offensive players and stars on the team, sometimes he kind of goes by the wayside, but he could be the best linebacker in this game. Actually, according to my list, he is the best linebacker in this game. So yeah, number 6 for me, number 7 for me, Fred Warner.
Might be the best linebacker in all of football, especially the way the game is played now, right? Because he goes sideline to sideline. He can drop into coverage. I know my man Aaron Rodgers has said many times that he thought that he was the best linebacker in football. Not Aaron Rodgers, the best linebacker in football, but that Fred Warner was the best linebacker in football. Number 7 for me, you just mentioned him, Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
A guy who had somewhat of an off season, but he just appears to me to be a big game player. And let's not forget, 4 years ago in the Super Bowl, if San Francisco wins that game, he's probably the MVP. They couldn't block him. He was giving Patrick Mahomes nightmares, and then they just couldn't finish the deal, whether it was on offense or defense. They didn't play the full 60 minutes. But Nick Bosa is a guy that can really wreck a game, so I have him at number 7.
Number 6 for me, Chris Jones. One of the obviously the key cogs to this Chiefs defense. And like you said before, I mean, if we were going to do a 10 through 15 list, the 4 of those 5 15s would probably be Chiefs defensive players. I mean, it was just there for me to fill out this list, and they were kind of right on the cusp. But I could not do one without Chris Jones. And look, they're going to need Chris Jones. They're down another defensive lineman towards ACL in the AFC Championship game. And again, one of the reasons Baltimore's not in this position right now is because they, for some reason, decided to not run the ball at all, which is puzzling because if you're going to attack a defense that's as strong as Kansas City, you would think they would go after their weakness, which just happens to also be Baltimore's strength, which was rushing the ball. So if you're San Francisco, I think that's where you attack, and you're going to have to deal with Chris Jones. And maybe it's too much for Chris Jones at the end of the day. But if San Francisco is going to win this game, they have to run the ball, and you're going to have to get by Chris Jones, and it's no easy task.
He's a sensational player. Number 6 for me, Fred Warner. We gave all the details why. Best linebacker in football, big game player, a guy who potentially can pick off a pass, even return it for 6, blitz, make a sack. I mean, he just is just a great all-around player. So that's Fred Warner, San Francisco's linebacker, number 6.
Number 5 for me, Travis Kelce, a guy who looks like he's obviously playing his best football of the season. It's remarkable to think he went 8 or 9 games without a touchdown pass in the regular season. Which naturally makes sense because I picked him on my fantasy football team, so I should have known from day one it was going to be cursed. But nonetheless, the postseason has awoken Travis Kelce. Now, here's the thing, John. We talked about it with Baltimore, here, Buffalo, and Miami. Let's focus on those two at first. We talked about their health issues defensively. Did it open up the field? Absolutely. Did it cause Travis Kelce to take advantage? Absolutely. I don't know if that's going to happen against San Francisco. So, yes, I think Travis Kelce is a weapon, but I got to believe that San Francisco is going to play defense better than what these other players did. And look, I mean, Baltimore played great defense, John, after the first quarter, and we saw what happened. Nothing. So, this Kansas City team is not the team of 2018, 2019, where it was just – good luck trying to stop him. It's like, if you're disciplined enough, you can stop him. Still doesn't take away what type of weapon Travis Kelce is, because once he gets rolling, we saw a diving catch, his athleticism, all that stuff. It's a great advantage for Kansas City. And I think it deserves, despite his down, quote unquote, regular season, top 5 player, no doubt about it in this game.
Number 5 for me is Chris Jones. You mentioned him previously. I think he's the closest thing we've seen to Richard Seymour. Similar type player, right? A guy who can put pressure on the quarterback, still control the running game, a multiple-time Pro Bowler, All-Pro. I think he finished 3rd for NFL Defensive Player of the Year last year. I mean, he's trending to being a potential Hall of Famer. He's their best defensive player, and sometimes gets left out of the great stars that Kansas City has because it's always about Mahomes and Kelce. Well, this guy's the leader of their defense, which is pretty darn good. So I have Chris Jones at number 5.
Okay, my number 4, Nick Bosa. We just talked about him. Like I said, maybe not the greatest regular season or relative to what he's used to, but he's a guy that's I think is going to cause a lot of havoc, and might be a problem for these Chiefs tackles who are prone to penalties. And if that starts off early, then you might see a team like the 49ers just really take control and take advantage of that weakness. So Nick Bosa for me, number 4.
I have Travis Kelce at number 4. Again, he seemed banged up throughout most of the season. He's 34, a lot of mileage on him. Seemed distracted at times with Taylor Swift, but once the postseason approached, he started to reconnect with Patrick Mahomes, and that's a lethal duo. I have him at number 4. He's always been a guy who comes up big in big games. That's just the way he's always played, like Rob Gronkowski. I mean, they're the 2 best tight ends of this era. Different styles of players, obviously, but this guy does come up huge in big games. Look, he was 11 catches on 11 targets against Baltimore in the AFC Championship game. You can't really get much better than that. So I have Travis Kelce at number 4.
All right, number 3 for me, Christian McCaffrey. Many would argue that he is the catalyst to this offensive juggernaut that is the 49ers. And look, you're not going to get much argument from me. Although, again, I think this is just a great collection of talent with the right quarterback. I don't think this is I like Brock Purdy a lot. I think he's done nothing but good things. So I have no reason to doubt what he can do. You know what I'm saying? So, to me, I look at it as like, yeah, Brock Purdy's great, but Christian McCaffrey's just a game changer. He's unlike really any other running back in the league right now. I think you get certain qualities and different players that Christian McCaffrey has, but no one has all the qualities that he does and does it at a level that he does. So number 3 for me is Christian McCaffrey.
He's the best dual threat running back since Marshall Faulk. I mean, you could plug him in and he'd be an elite slot receiver. And in fact, when he was coming out of Stanford, many believed that's what he was going to be. You don't generally take a slot receiver in the top 10, but I'm sure he would have been an all-pro slot receiver. Well, he does even more than that, being an all-pro running back and an MVP candidate. Number 3 for me is Trent Williams. And, all year long I was pumping up Trent Williams to be a, kind of out of left field, or in this case, out of left tackle MVP candidate. He's that good. That offense is different when he's out there. And, he's a guy who can stack up against some of the all-time greats just from hearing about the opponents and what they say about him. And you just go back to the NFC Championship game. Aiden Hutchinson's a really good player. When he was lined up against Trent Williams, we never heard his name called. Like he just eliminates whoever's in front of him. And that's very comforting for Brock Purdy and the rest of that offense. So I had Trent Williams at number 3.
I'm a bit disappointed in you, John.
I know you thought I'd put him number 1.
Well, maybe I might shock you here a little bit because my number 2 player, John, Patrick Mahomes. Oh,
oh man.
Oh boy.
Fans see that.
Oh man. Well, look. Obviously, no greater advantage than having Patrick Mahomes in this game because of his experience, what he's done in this league, and everything like that. But if you're going to ask me to just blindly believe a myth, then I'll put Patrick Mahomes number 1. But for right now, I'm looking at it and saying, yeah, you know what? Great games again, pretty good games against Buffalo and Miami. Against, again, I thought they were. When Miami trots out the linebacking group that they did, I hope you take advantage of that. No Xavier Howard missing play. Take advantage of it. They didn't necessarily.
Zach Thomas played in that game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Already a Hall of Famer. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, did they get the job done? Yes, absolutely. But the Ravens game really wasn't that good, John. And if you're a Chiefs fan, I'd be concerned because, like I said, I mean, the Ravens, they just for whatever reason decided not to attack their weakness, and that's something I think San Francisco will do, which is going to put pressure on this offense. And I just don't think this offense is going to be able to necessarily handle that. That's not to say that Mahomes isn't great and everything like that, but number 2 in this game, considering what we've seen this season, is Patrick Mahomes.
Number 2 for me, Christian McCaffrey. Again, I think he's a legit MVP candidate. They'll announce those awards tomorrow night in Las Vegas. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's going to win MVP, but I would think McCaffrey will be a top 5 finisher for the award. He just does so much for that team. And we were talking about a difference between Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo, and I agree with you that Purdy has more of the killer instinct, and it's had to come from further behind than, say, Jimmy Garoppolo. It also helped that Purdy's first game was Christian McCaffrey's first game. I believe Garoppolo got hurt earlier in that game that McCaffrey made his debut against the Kansas City Chiefs. So, I mean, Garoppolo never really had the opportunity to have McCaffrey in the backfield, and he's that important. But I have him at number 2. And look, if the 49ers win the game, he's probably going to be the MVP. As good as Brock Purdy is, look, if Purdy throws for 307 yards and 3 touchdowns, he'll win the MVP. That's what happens. But McCaffrey's the guy that obviously Kansas City's going to have to really zero in and try to really contain it. And we saw how good McCaffrey was in the second half against the Lions. He was sensational, along with Brock Purdy and the rest of that offense in that comeback.
And John, to even get to Christian McCaffrey, you're going to have to get by my number 1 player, a guy I thought you were going to have number 1, and I thought I was going to pull the rug out from under you and steal your thunder, but apparently you stole your own thunder by putting him number 3, Trent Williams. Just a towering beast of a man, and just so much better at that position than anyone else in the league. It should be criminal, is what it is. But look, the reality of it is, this team is predicated so much on rhythm and just dissecting and tearing apart other defenses with their just relentless offense. You don't do that without Trent Williams. You know, you need the quarterback, you need the players, but you need the guy that's going to not give up a sack an entire season, and that's what Trent Williams has done this year.
Can you even give up a quarterback pressure?
I don't know. I don't know.
At some point, if you're going up against Trent Williams, why bother having anybody rush against him?
Just rush the opposite side. Just put everything on.
Else. And, yeah, it's just like, what's the point? It's kind of like, when Shaq was in his prime, it's like, what are we doing down here?
Yeah.
How do we contain this man? So, no, I think it's a good choice because he may be, in terms of pure ability, and like you said, the difference between him and the second best left tackle in football, whoever that may be, the distance is so great that, yeah, he could technically be the best player in football. Right? I mean, there was a point, and it was a different time, like in the early 80s, like John Hanna was considered the best player in football. Now, he was a guard, and, there were great quarterbacks as well, but he played his position better than anybody else played their position. And football is more difficult than these other sports.
Yeah.
Basketball is kind of positionless players. So, 1 year it could be LeBron, the next year it could be Durant, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to push back against that particular putting him number one. Not at all. He's that good. And look, he'll be a big part of San Francisco winning this game if they do win it, because he's going to give the quarterback plenty of time. He's going to give Christian McCaffrey plenty of room to operate.
No, yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I know you were going to, be happy with that because, like, deep down, you're like, yes, thank you. Thank you.
Now, what would have happened? What would have happened though if someone came out during one of Brady's Super Bowls and put the left tackle above him from the opposing team? Like, I'm trying to think.
Well, you think
Jason Peters or
well, you think that's not
with the Eagles?
Well, put yourself in a mindset of 2004. No one was crowning Brady the greatest of all time. He wasn't getting that respect. You kidding me?
In that game, I think he would have been considered the best player, right? Well,
I don't know, John.
Yeah, I know. If we weren't doing this 20 years ago, we could have maybe had to take on that. I'm thinking more the second half of the dynasty.
Well, like I mean, but at that point, you're a 4, 5, 6-time Super Bowl champion, and you know, and it's like, look, I look. People think again. I think I'm a Mahomes hater. I'm not. I'm really not. I like the kid a lot. I think he's a really great young player. I think the anointment is obviously far too premature. And look, I mean, when you want to kind of get down and dirty and talk about his strengths and weaknesses, I don't think he's as good of a quarterback as Tom Brady is. I know that offends people, but that's my opinion.
I really liked his answer a couple nights ago when he was asked about that. He
goes,
I have 2 Super Bowls. He says, I'm not even close to speak to me in 15 years.
Yeah,
I think he handled that perfectly. He really did. Like,
that's my answer.
That's the thing about it. I don't think he's the one. Well, he's not the one putting this forward. It's Chiefs fans and some national media members who, you want to be heard. So Patrick Mahomes to me handled himself really well in 6 years. I mean, yeah, he got a little carried away in that loss to Buffalo, and but look, he's a competitive guy.
But
for the most part, he's really handled himself like a superstar.
Well, what did we say at the time, John? And I said it. I was like, look, it's a bad look for him. It's a it'll be a little negative that people harp on. But at the end of the day, no one's going to care because it's one thing. Now people, you know what I mean? And so it's like, my opinion was, do I think he deserved to get some licks from that? Yeah, sure. But does it mean he's a sore loser or a bad play? No, of course not. But that's the thing. There's there's no nuance. It's all black and white with everyone. Like, in terms of, like, okay, if you think he's throwing a fit in this situation, then you must think that's all he does. No, no. People understand that there are depths to these conversations. Like, you can criticize a player and point out some of his shortcomings, certainly when he's compared to Tom Brady, and you can also believe that he's a really good player and not think he sucks. So, unfortunately, that sort of nuance is lost on most people, and it is what it is. So, anyways, that's gonna do it for us here today. We will we'll be back tomorrow. We're gonna talk some more Super Bowl 58 and get geared up for this game on Sunday. Two more episodes of the show, and we will give our picks Friday afternoon or Friday morning, of course. So, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you then.